Watching the media, you wouldn't know that this Susan Rice story is really a real story. But it is. It's real. Real crimes and real misconduct came from the White House, yet the media is choosing to ignore it, even calling it fake. This made-for-TV drama, it couldn't get any more nuts. But the outcome, it's already predetermined, depending on which team you support. What you believe and which dots you choose to connect depend greatly on which publications you read. If you read the New York Times, which sat on the Susan Rice story, then Russia must have worked with President Trump to defeat Hillary. Of course, if you read something like Breitbart, then Trump is some angel and all of his associates are innocent of any wrongdoing. Of course, as of Tuesday morning, the mainstream media, they've completely whitewashed this Susan Rice story. ABC News, they have a story about Carter Page being recruited by Russian spies, yet nothing about Rice. The Washington Post, they've got a story about Erik Prince. He wasn't even part of Trump's transition team, but of course they have nothing on Rice. CNN, they've got 4 pieces about Bill O'Reilly, and they have one headline about the Rice issue. Sources, unmasking claim is false. CNN's Don Lemon even called the story fake. He went on the air encouraging his viewers to ignore any information coming out about the matter. MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, she turned 2 pages of Trump's tax returns into a primetime special. What is she doing a story on now? How Trump might be using the National Security Council for political gains. This is the exact same thing that we have proof of with Susan Rice. That's not speculation, we have proof. And Rachel Maddow is somehow turning it into a story on Trump. The media is literally telling you, we're picking a side and you should ignore all facts. Susan Rice, even today, went on Andrea Mitchell's show on MSNBC. She was asked more questions about Russia, Michael Flynn, and Donald Trump than she was of her own actions. Mitchell led Rice down a line of questioning that made her seem completely innocent. Rice was set up to slam Russia and slide out of her own wrongdoings. Rice wouldn't even answer if she would testify if called. Mitchell, of course, didn't even follow up. Instead, she asked Rice about Republicans saying mean things to her. You have someone that is implicated in a major scandal, and MSNBC used the opportunity to play political patty cake. We, the American people, need to ask ourselves a question. Joe Scarborough asked the same question on his show. What if Dick Cheney did this to President Obama? Would that anger you? Would you be outraged at that? Would the Democratic darlings, MSNBC or CNN, would they still play softball? I know that it would have been front page news for days. Instead, because we don't like Donald Trump, it's rightfully so, we shouldn't like him, but we are allowing the Obama White House to get away with anything. Heck, there's people out there calling Susan Rice a patriot because somehow we don't care if someone breaks the law or abuses power. We just want our own team to win. I fail to see that logic, that because Trump is awful, then somehow Democrats are infallible. I fail to see how John Podesta getting his email phished and somehow those emails leaking to the public, that the White House spying on political foes is okay. And I fail to see how the media will run with a story about Trump's ties to Russia, but won't touch a story about Susan Rice leaking information, maybe not personally, but through channels, to the press about a rival political party. That is a massive problem. The truth, it shouldn't matter what your voter registration is. The truth is the truth. If we were objective, we would demand that Susan Rice testify under oath, like we are for Michael Flynn. We would demand to know what Rice told Obama. We would demand to know what Trump knew about Michael Flynn, likewise. But the fact that you are willing to forgive the sins of one side and then take up pitchforks about the sins of the other side show that you really don't care about the crime. You don't care what actually transpired. You just want your team to win. You know, it's kind of like when you talk to an irrational sports fan. They'll always tell you the reason they ever lost was because of the refs or because the other team cheated. Well, the same thing goes for politics. The problem is that the corporate media, heck, they're even more fanatical than the public. There's this weird love affair with the establishment wing of the Democrats, and the press is doing anything they can to protect them. If both sides were wrong, if both sides did something illegal, we deserve to know what happened, and we deserve justice. Instead, we just keep getting fed the same garbage, absolute garbage, by the corporate media. I've said it before, when it comes to the press, truth is dead.
If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you've done all those things, please check out all the videos below. Stay up to date with everything we do here at Ring of Fire.